even if we're not yet comfortable, even if we haven't yet stepped on the bridge, right? We always want to be thinking about what questions or things could we say if we feel comfortable. So if we feel comfortable and our cousin asks us, what we're doing over the summer, what do you think could be something we can ask them too? Like, do you think you'd want to know what they're doing over the summer? This is also a cousin who is having a graduation. So do we want to ask them maybe a question about what they're doing after graduation if we don't know, or if we know they're going to a college, maybe we want to ask them a question about if they're excited or what college they're going to. So there's so many questions that we can dive into. So even if we're not comfortable asking the question, that's where a parent can come in, and a parent can help bring us into communication. So I know in previous, podcasts, we've talked a lot about our SM triangle and how that's really important for a parent to kind of bring you into communication with that third person, because even if they don't feel comfortable going up to the child and saying, "Oh, what college are you into?" A parent can turn and say, "I know that we had some questions for you, Riley. Did we want to ask about what they're doing this summer, or do we want to ask about their college experience?" Right? And so that way, it can help bring the child in, where we can either turn to mom. If we're verbal, we can say college experience. We can either turn to mom and use them as a verbal intermediary, where we can say college experience, and maybe mom can tell the person. Or if we're prepared, like we have been doing, we can always have that list of questions down and we could always point to it, or mom could prompt us for a head nod, right, which is our nonverbal communication. So again, these are all different examples of how we can bring your child into communication, honoring all stages on the bridge. So that's also, I know I broke that down a lot, but that's really what I love about an action plan, is we can really slow ourselves down and have as much preparation as possible. So it's not about just memorizing a list, right? That's not the goal, but it's really to reduce this uncertainty. And so we want to be prepared as much as possible.
And we have, what I want our listeners to understand, that it's not just, this is what lowers anxiety. When people think about SM being an anxiety, a social communication anxiety, how do I lower anxiety? Do I just put my kid on meds? What do I do to lower their anxiety? The strategies are what's key in building the confidence, the connection, so that they know what, when, and where, and that lowers anxiety. So these strategies, like you were mentioning, copy back. Hi, how are you? Good. How are you? There's kids we work with that can't do that. They just go, good. What's going on? Nothing. So we have to teach them these I am, I just, copy back. They, in a relaxed setting, many know how to do this, but when they're not as comfortable, it's almost like they forget. So practicing through these different games, through young children, different goals through older kids and adults, it's really important to, one, respect where they're at on the bridge. Now, a college student, interestingly enough, the older the individual, the less they have challenges being verbal. They just don't know what to say, when to say it, how to say it. They lack initiation, elaboration, expression, conversation starters. So we're working on different things with different individuals, and that's what treatment is. So when we're working through this action plan, we're not like, here's the action plan. We're helping them change their thoughts, their feelings, working with their feelings, how that affects their behaviors. We're working in so many ways to help support them, to give them the confidence to work on all of this. And again, the younger the child, the more it's very game-like and fun-like and written and drawn. It's very important that the visuals support this. So as we're talking about action plans, and I will say the young child version, or I do have adults that do this, use sandwich questions. So every action plan starts with hi, how are you? And ends with see you later, goodbye, whatever. Same with a sandwich, right? The top bun is hi, how are you? Or hi. The bottom is bye, have a great day. Whatever it is we decide to do in that moment. And we prepare for, many of my young kids have toys that are different sandwiches that look like a sandwich where the questions are inside, and they'll draw it. They'll have the toys that do represent it. I have adults that like to draw out the sandwich, and they'll have different sandwiches for Starbucks versus a family barbecue. And interestingly enough, if you can do this at Starbucks, you can do it at Dunkin' Donuts, you can do it at all different places, because it becomes very rote and very kind of scripted out, and then you let go of the visuals. You don't need them forever, but it's a way to help support them. And so I think that's really, important, that what we're talking about, the written worksheets that these individuals use, the older kids and adults, are very important, and the visuals the young children have through game playing and the goals the parents have. Because often, what do I give my child? But what are your goals as a parent to help support all of this? So again, the more that we prepare, the more we're lowering processing. A big part of SCAT is understanding the effect of anxiety and how so much of what we do minimizes the need to think and process. So it isn't just being brave or courageous. Yes, it is to a point, right? But some of our kids are brave and courageous handing a note to somebody, or using a parent as an intermediary, or shaping sounds into words depending on where they're at on the bridge. But when you're anxious, I mean, I want our listeners to think about it. You don't think and process well. You get nervous. You almost shut down. It's like going into a speech and not being prepared,
Right.
or turning to someone in an audience and saying, "Hey, tell me what you think about global warming." Oh my gosh, I don't know anything about global warming. Tell me what you know. The panic that comes over them. Versus if they had a chance to prepare, maybe in a small group or one-on-one. It's about meeting these individuals where they're at, what can they do, and bridging up as we need to.
Mm-hmm.
So many children and teens and adults struggle when they have to think quickly in a social situation. So if an individual knows the questions, knows the responses, their brain has less work to do. They don't shut down as much.
Mm-hmm.
They're ready. They're less anxious. The response time improves. So it creates familiarity, it creates comfort, confidence. And what happens? They connect easier, they communicate easier.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty amazing how that works.